on.
Recording as well. And I'll turn it over to Mayor Clark.
All right, thank you very much.
The mic went off?
Stand by, I've got to change my my setting here. Okay, can you hear me now? All right, I'd like to call to order the Budget Committee for the City of Keizer for fiscal year 2021-2022. And we need to do roll call. I'll leave that to Ms. Davis.
Thank you. Kathy Clark.
Here.
Russ Day.
Here.
All right. JD Gillis.
Here.
Gerard Gaviline.
Here.
Sorry, I was here. Roland Herrera.
Here.
Kyle Duran.
Here.
Daniel Kohler.
Here.
Melissa Martin.
Here.
Ali Rozuli. I see him.
Here.
Okay, I see you. Laura Reed.
Here.
Francisco Saldivar.
Hearing none, all those in favor
Here.
of adopting.
Herb Sangster.
Here.
Elizabeth Smith.
Here.
And Jonathan Thompson.
Here.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Can you hear me better now?
By raising.
Yes, okay, I'm getting some head nods.
Aye.
What I'd like to do at this time is to make a nomination for the Budget Committee Chair and Vice Chair.
Thank you.
This year, the chair is to be a citizen member and the vice chair a counselor.
20
And I have asked Ali Rasuli if he'd be willing to be the chair this year. And I'd like to nominate him to be chair for the Budget Committee this year.
Second.
This is, you're in, so what happened?
Are there any other nominations? Be there or be chair.
Madam Mayor, I can hear somebody, there's something else on the feedback or something. It sounds like the City of Detroit City Council meeting.
Okay, so we'll see if that got, okay, do you hear it now? Because that sounds like it got quieter. Okay. Fabulous, thank you. I'm hearing no other nominations. Mr. Johnson, do I just move on to vice chair and then elect the slate, or do I do them individually?
So as I understand, there's only one nomination for chair.
That is correct.
So the proper statement is that if there's no further nomination by unanimous consent.
All right, there are no further nominations, so by unanimous consent, Ali Rasuli is elected chair. And I will turn it over to you, sir, for nominations for the vice chair. There you are.
Hi. Okay, who do we have for nominations for vice chair?
Mr. Chair, I would like to nominate Councilor Laura Reed for vice chair.
Second.
Do we have a second?
Yeah. Third.
Are there any
All right, then
nominations?
I'm not hearing any, so motion for approval.
So moved.
Second.
All right, so from here, can we, next on the agenda then is the approval of the budget calendar. If you could turn to page 16.
So did we need to take the vote on that, or is it by unanimous consent? Mr. Johnson?
Is that, I'm sorry, is that directed to me? Yes. So if there were no further nominations, the appropriate statement is with no objection by unanimous consent and name the vice chair.
Okay. If I should have written that one down.
That's okay. It's so the appropriate statement is, and I'm sorry I missed the name, but whoever was named as vice chair, if there are no further nominations, Councilor Reed, is that correct? So if there are no further nominations by unanimous consent, would declare Councilor Reed as vice chair. Any objections? Okay, so I think that's done, Madam Mayor.
Okay, so now on the next item on the agenda is the approval of the budget calendar. So if we turn to page 16.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the budget calendar as presented.
Seconded.
Any discussion? I'll make a motion for approval then.
So you will call for the vote, or all in favor? Because I made the motion and Mr. Sangster seconded.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Let's hear all yays.
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Any nays? Okay, then now I guess motion for approval.
That was the,
That was the you're right on.
All right, I'm working through this.
So you think you can declare the motion passed, the budget calendar is adopted.
As written.
Okay, so the budget calendar is passed as written with no amendments. All right, next on our agenda is approval of the year 2021 budget committee minutes.
I move we approve the minutes from fiscal year 2021 budget committee.
Second.
All right, let's have a vote on the yeas.
aye,
Aye.
Aye.
Any nay? Okay, then that is approved as written. Okay, moving on then to the city manager's budget message. Tim?
Thank you. I'll go ahead and take over from here. I am kind of surprised that here we are, year 2 of doing the budget committee meetings via Zoom. I thought year 1 was kind of a shocker, and now, unfortunately, this almost feels normal. So, who would have guessed? But anyway, Honorable Mayor Clark, City Councilors, Budget Committee, and residents of Keizer, I'm pleased to present the City of Keizer's annual budget for fiscal year 2021-22. And undeniably, fiscal year 2020-21 has been one for the record books. We had fire, we had ice, we had a pandemic, we had a presidential election, we've had calls to social justice, and the year isn't even over yet. So I don't know what all of you have on your calendars for May and June, but please keep it quiet. Through all of that, the city kept on moving forward. We kept showing up at all of the opportunities to help out our neighbors. We weren't perfect all the time, but we did the best we could when we could. We keep providing the critical services our community needed throughout this time. We provided water, sewer, streets, parks, police, code enforcement. We were the promoters of peace and justice throughout all the turmoil that was last year. Overall, the city of Keizer right now is in a relatively stable financial position, given the COVID-19 pandemic's impact. Consistent with the rest of the state and the nation, the city has experienced a significant drop in revenues associated with the hospitality and travel industries, specifically venue rental revenue in our community center and also our parks and amphitheater. Our transient occupancy tax took a hit, and gas taxes as residents have been encouraged to stay home, work from home, and not gather in large groups for most of the fiscal year. In response to the drop in revenues, the city had to make some hard decisions. We did make the decision to close the community center. We did that in October and also laid off 2 positions that directly supported those operations. In addition, we're closely watching the gas tax revenues and adjusting the amount of street improvements, resurfacings that we're able to provide for. Unfortunately, the impact from the COVID-19 pandemic is still with us, and it's probably expected to be felt into the near future. The fiscal year 2021-22 budget has been prepared with the following priorities. Number 1 priority is mitigating and recovering from the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. We're continuing to invest in our building infrastructure to prevent the spread between the public and the staff and between the staff and the staff. We also continue with ongoing IT improvements to support working remotely, paperless environments, and touchless interactions. The second priority is maintaining and restoring existing services. One of our priorities, as we're allowed to, is to make the community center whole. Bring back up to 2 employees to support the ongoing operations. We also need to get back on track with our street improvements, resurfacing types of projects, once we can figure out where the gas tax is going to finally land for us. We're also going to have to deal with the PERS rate increase while we're trying to maintain full staffing. This specifically hits the police department extra hard, as that's approximately 50% of the city's staff. We're also in the midst of recruiting and filling the city manager position. So that's what we're looking at doing to maintain and restore the existing services. We're also looking to continue capital investment in all of the city services. We have the Parks Master Plan. We're looking to do some picnic shelters at the Big Toy, ADA upgrades at Bob Newton, irrigate and seed the lower field at Keizer Rapids Park, do some pathway lighting at Bear Park, and also there's always the ongoing tree work, especially in light of the February ice storm. With the water system master plan, we're continuing on with our mainline replacement projects. That one has been with us for a while, and that's really the last main component to complete our water system master plan. Stormwater improvements, we're looking at continuing our video inspection process. And as we determine the results of that process, we're going to be doing stormline replacement realignment type of projects as needed. The fourth component that factored into the budget is the City Council's short-term goals. Specifically, we have funds provided for the continuation of the Parks Master Plan update. We're providing for a water rate structure study. We have matching funds for potential studies associated with reviewing the UGB. In addition to that, the budget does not include potential funding from the American Rescue Plan Act yet, because the amount, timing, and potential uses have not yet been identified at the time the budget was put together. I do anticipate those three questions probably being answered within the next week or two. So potentially by the time the budget gets approved in June, we'll have an additional supplemental budget to adjust the numbers. The National League of Cities does estimate that we may receive well over $8 million. So we're going to need everyone's help in being creative to figure out how we can use those funds to the maximum benefit for the residents of Keizer. In addition, while it's still early in the process, there are some funds allocated for the recruitment of the new city manager. And I would request we do that quick. Overall, the fiscal year 21-22 annual budget is approximately $48 million and includes $8.8 million in capital spending and $1.8 million in debt service payments. The debt service payments is down slightly from the previous year because we did pay off our long-term debt associated with the water fund. That's a significant achievement for the city. You don't get to pay off debt every day, so that's exciting to see that one go away. Total operating revenues are expected to be a little bit lower than the prior year. During fiscal year 2021, we received approximately $1.1 million in CARES Act funds. We used those funds to provide direct assistance to the residents of Keizer through our partnerships with St. Vincent de Paul, Salvation Army. We also use those funds as matching grants to support our businesses. And those funds also provided for the front lobby remodel if you've been around City Hall. It also provided for a lot of significant IT infrastructure to support the working remotely aspect of life now. And also the funds paid for staff costs due to the federally mandated COVID-19 paid time off. In order to sustain the existing service levels and fund the necessary capital improvements that I've talked about, the budget also includes a proposed 4% water rate increase. This is the same amount that was discussed during the long-range planning. It also includes a 3% sewer rate. This amount is dictated by the City of Salem, and it's a flow-through that we do the billing and then pass along that revenue to the City of Salem. Also included is a proposed $1 per month increase in the police services fee. This is down from the $2 that we had originally anticipated in the long-range planning. We've identified some savings elsewhere that we think that we can live with a $1 per month increase. The fiscal year 2022 budget provides for 101 full-time employees. That's as compared to 103 full-time employees during the previous fiscal year. The change in staffing is a result of restructuring in the planning and the finance department. As you're probably aware, the community development director retired. We turned that position into a planning director, and we did not backfill the senior planner role. As a result of reallocating responsibilities in the finance department, we did not backfill the administrative specialist position. Those responsibilities have shifted to the utility billing group and also to the community center once we get those operations up and running again. The budget provides for a 2% cost of living increase for non-represented employees and a 2.5% increase for members of the Keizer Police Association. The city is currently in negotiations with the local 737, which is the Public Works Union, as the applicable agreement expires June 30th, 2021. The actual amount of the increase for Public Works is not known at this time. So that may be an additional adjustment depending on where that cost of living adjustment lands. In general, the city does strive to be in the middle of the salary ranges for all of our comparable cities. The budget also provides for a 5% increase in health insurance benefits, which is significantly lower than the city has experienced in the past. Historically, as we talked about during the Long Range Planning Committee, we've seen increases between 7 and 10% historically. This increase is based on the city history and also includes an allowance for employees who have family events such as babies, that kind of a thing, or kids moving out of the house. So changes in plans and coverages at the individual employee level. Unfortunately, this year, we're also being faced with the PERS biannual rate change that takes effect July 1st, 2021. The rate change alone, as I've indicated in the past, has resulted in retirement costs increasing approximately $410,000, of which $269,000 is directly or indirectly impacting the general fund. As the finance director, this is one of the things that keeps me up at night. Every other year, it's a black eye that I'm just waiting to get hit with. The police department impact of the rate increase is approximately $205,000. That's approximately 1.5 police officers. The retirement costs significantly outpacing revenue increases is one of the primary reasons we struggle to maintain full staffing within the police department. With that, I'd like to thank the City Council and you, the Budget Committee, for providing helpful policy direction in creating this budget, the important questions you ask, and the requests for detail needed to understand and appreciate the city services. I do recognize that 2 nights of 3-hour meetings is a significant commitment in 1 week, and I do appreciate and thank all of you for your time and your willingness to serve on this committee. So with that, I would like to conclude the city manager's message. And at this point, I believe it's time for public testimony. We do have approximately 6 people who are in attendance with us. And it looks like all of them are looking to speak. So I will go ahead and let into the meeting Meredith Mooney and Jennifer Polinick, who will talk on behalf of Keizer United.
Thank you, City Council and Budget Committee. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Alrighty. Thank you for having us here to give you an update of what Keizer United has been up to in the fiscal year 2021. We were able, with the $2,000 that we were awarded last year, we were able to come alongside the Holiday Giving Basket program through the Chamber with $500. The Northwest Hub with $200. They also worked in collaboration with Safe Routes to Schools in the city of Keizer TBPC. We also came alongside Salem Harvest with $100. If you are not familiar with them, you should check them out. They save so much food and put food in the hungry bellies of our neighbors. We came alongside Peggy and Jerry Moore Community Garden, and we were able to provide $225 so they could purchase a small rototiller to till their raised beds. And as Keizer United, we have created something called the Garden Grant Program, and we have reached out to the 6 community gardens. This is the 2nd year in a row that we've done this. We reach out to them and we offer $100 for them to spend at Copper Creek Mercantile. So we partner with Copper Creek, and they're able to go in and spend that money. We have 5 community partners that are 5 community gardens that are taking us up on that offer this year. We're also looking forward to a request from LAC, the Latinos in Action Committee. We get to celebrate with them and come alongside them as they celebrate with students that have overcome challenges, Latino students that have overcome challenges in graduation. So we're looking forward to that coming in. Thank you, City of Keizer. Not only has the city supported us financially, but you have been a guiding force of wisdom and knowledge. Your support has spurred us on, growing our collective to roughly 70 community members or partners, with an average monthly attendance of 25 people at our monthly Zoom meetings. So far, in the fiscal year 2020-21, we have accrued over 500 volunteer hours and valuing over $1,200. Your financial support and guidance are showing an enormous return on investment, not only in dollar amount, but in overall impact in your community and our community. Keizer United is a CPT, a community partnership team. If you're unfamiliar with it, we put lots of information in this packet that we sent to all of you. Hopefully you all got that. We also listed out lots of our partners. It's really fun. We have so many representatives. We excitedly get to hear from Keizer PD and from City Council, Roland Herrera, and Marion County each month. And then we also get to hear from other partners that bring highlights like outward mindset overview training we had presented by the Salem Leadership Foundation, or Mid-Valley Literacy Center has come and shared with us the things that are going on with them, Liberty House, CASA, and I could go on. Monthly, we have 1 to 2 highlights from different community partners. Our vision is those who work, live, worship, or play in Keizer are united in their efforts to build and retain a stronger community. Our mission is to offer a forum for Keizer to recognize and assist resident needs through a collaboration by the gathering of resources and ideas to strengthen the community within. We have long desired to be a larger, more dynamic group of Keizer representatives. Excitedly, this growth is happening, and so we foresee a growing need extending beyond just this year. So we look forward to your considering supporting us financially again another year. And I just want to give a shout out to our board. We used to have board meetings with our community meetings, and it's grown so much that we have to have a separate meeting now. And so we have representatives from Chariots, SLF, Chamber, Food Bank, and some Monka Place that make up our board. In addition to the monthly updates, I already told you that. Anyways, so the most valuable part of what's happening through Keizer United is the continuing and deepening collaboration between partners. Monthly meetings foster a rich environment of collaboration between community partners that serve a variety of needs within the community. We have found that by working together, we have the opportunity to avoid duplicating services, combine resources, and discover gaps in service that we might collectively find new avenues of provision for. And I think that's it. You have all the rest of the information in your packet. Are there any questions? I also have Jennifer Palaniuk here with me that can also answer questions. She's from the Salem Leadership Foundation and part of our board. Roland?
I just want to make a comment, if I may, as a liaison, a council liaison with Keizer United, this has been not only the networking, but the collaboration, like you said it very well with your mission statement, and it's been invaluable. I mean, like to this day, I'm still connected with a homeless family that we work with, and it all came through Keizer United. I also made some good connections as a mentor to Keizer United, and LAC has been very grateful in regards to and we're looking forward, once we get past this pandemic, to doing our annual Mexican lunch for the whole group. But I think Keizer United has done so much good, and I really appreciate the hard work of the board and you, Meredith. You've been amazing. Thank you. That's my 2 cents.
Thank you, Roland, and thank you for your support and always keeping us up to date with the city.
If there's no more questions, then let's see, I'll figure out how to do this. I'll disable the Keizer United folks, and I'll be promoting Robert Becker, Lori Christopher, and Robin Barney from Keizer Heritage.
That mean, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes? Okay. Well, thank you very much, Honorable Mayor Clark and City of Keizer's Council. We are grateful for your time this evening to brief you on the activities of the Keizer Heritage Foundation. We're doing business now as Keizer Cultural Center, and we would like to update you on our 2020 and moving forward into 2021. And we are very proud of our accomplishments this year, given everything that's gone on. Since March of 2020, the Keizer Cultural Center has been closed to the public. The foundation set forth to sanitize and prep the building for what was to come, and procedures set up to practiced by each tenant. It was challenging at times, and we did find ways to engage into the community and communicate with the community and do business. Each of our tenants are very unique and has developed ways to involve and communicate to the Keizer community and beyond. The Keizer Homegrown Theater continues to be a very good fit for the Cultural Center. They've been busy over this past years, continuing to interact with the community and engage them in entertainment and education. Their first order of business was to prep the Homegrown Theater for performance space for pandemic safety protocols. They purchased air filters, put them in place, and have sanitation stations installed to keep the public and their actors safe. McNary High School class of 2020 filmed its graduation speeches at their COVID compliant space, providing community unity. They established an Oregon Trail program offering free theater tickets for people with cards, staged a successful production in theater space before the COVID lockdown. Then they pivoted to 2 free online productions via Zoom. They were nervous, and they accepted donations from their viewers, and then again they were partnering with the community, the Oregon Card program. They used this time during the lockdown to complete their planned theater remodel and partnered with the Energy Trust of Oregon, replaced lighting for some new LED instruments and specifically chosen for their space. The 45th Parallel Playwrights are currently using their theater space, utilizing a Zoom membership provided by the Keizer Homegrown Theater. And the group will return to the theater once COVID restrictions have been lifted, and they can perform stage readings, original works, and share with the community. They have staged play reading nights with participants and spectators via Zoom, filmed and staged performance of Date for YouTube in April of 2021. I hope you've all saw it. It's a really good YouTube video. Established classes for learning stage management, craft, and other classes featuring theater technologies once the theater is back open again. They do have a hybrid season planned for 2021. Joining the film industry of dating will be 2 or 3 productions staged outside in various local venues throughout the summer. But in October and November, productions are scheduled to be performed in the theater with obviously limited audience. And the theater continues to develop new ways to participate and involve our community. The Enid Joy Art Gallery has made sure that the community will continue to enjoy fine art in life, even though it is a challenge that, for the Zoom classes and virtual tours. The artwork is amazing, allowing you to experience the details of each piece, and you can kind of pause to just soak it all in. They have pivoted to an online art classes for the public, keeping them occupied and wanting more. It's been very successful, and frankly, there's no limit to the classes if you can do it at Zoom and you're in the comforts of your own home. They have also pivoted to an online monthly art shows, which allows more access to the public to view community art in the comfort of their own homes. They have also expanded their art classes to include free admission for anyone who qualifies for the Oregon Trail Card, partnering with the community to allow cultural exposure to those who may not otherwise get an opportunity. And they're partnering with other nonprofits. They have set up their art classroom, which is right next door to the Enjoy Art Theater, Art Gallery, Scurry, in a professional theater online presentations, and they allow their space to be used by nonprofits for free. And so they've been working cohesively with the other tenants, the Keizer Homegrown Theater, Keizer Community Library, and the Keizer Museum. They've invited all of the McNary High School art teachers to use their classroom for free to meet in person with their students to expose them to more opportunities. The library has been a hero and forever changing their appearance to involve more of the community and keep volunteers safe. They are the oversight people for our building. The library has a monthly Keizer column, which they provide all of the content. They inform the community of any changes, programs, and needs. The first change made was that they brought to the table was curbside pickup service, which is very busy. But all you have to do is call into the library, email them, let them know the author and the book that you would like, or books, or just a simple category, and they'll give you a pickup time, and voila, you have books to read. The library is not closed, it is still open for business. They also have, which I really like, a Bag-O book project. So all you have to do is contact the library regarding your author and book type again. The library will fill a bag with 5 or 7 books, and then they'll get a hold of you for when to pick up. And this is keeping the community involved, and it's also another source of revenue for them. I use it. I love it. It's great. And it's always a surprise as to what you get. They are also, since COVID, they've had a lot of donations because people spent time cleaning out closets and bookshelves. And what they have found is they have come into possession of a lot of rare books or books that are hard to get a hold of. And so they've started a rare book project, and it creates a new revenue stream also for the library. You can find those books on their website. And if you have anything that you would like to donate, I'm sure they'd be happy to give. And the library keeps in touch with all of their volunteers on a monthly basis. They share all of the news, what's going on, events, and needs of the library. They were able to award the Art Burr, spelled B-U-R-R, award this year to Mary Sasaki, S-A-S-A-K-I. And this is really exciting news. The library is getting remodeled. The completion should be sometime this fall. They're looking to start 1st of June, and they're getting a complete renovation. Once this project is completed, we will have an electronic video of the renovations on the foundation website so you can see what it looks like if we're still not able to go in. As usual, the library is having their yearly book sale at McNary Golf Course. It's again in August. It was a great success last year. They're working hard to make sure that we're all COVID safe, and they'd like to see everyone in Keizer show up. Volunteers continue to engage with the youth. They're providing virtual holiday stories. They have partnered with the Marion County Food Share to help fill the pantry. Please notice the big blue box that sits on the curb between our 2 buildings. That's the brand new book return. It's so cool because it's so easy. You don't have to wait for the building to be open. You don't have to wait for the library to be open. Drive up, drop in, drive away. Contactless. It's great, and it's being used. The museum and the reason the building is there. The museum has taken this opportunity to also revamp and update their online presence as well as their physical space by creating more interaction with the community. They have continued to update and maintain the collection of photos and memorabilia via Tammy Wild, and also stories, the oral history as technology will allow. For example, the YouTube video of the old schoolhouse being moved. It's amazing. I must watch that thing on a monthly basis. It just shows with some determination what can really happen. The Keizer Points of Interest, which is a city committee, joined the museum, which is a perfect fit. They collaborate together with research and ideas to make sure that they're both succeeding. And I thank you for sending them our direction. It's been a great help. The museum has also created a new foundation website. It's still under construction, but it's the gateway to public, for the public to see our highlights of the building and the tenants. We'll be having the tenants and events listed in the calendar, and it also serves as an avenue to link with a certain tenant if you need to, being the library, the museum, or the art gallery. And the museum website is a work in progress featuring the history of Keizer and how to get involved. It's forever changing. We also are continuing to revamp our exhibit space for better displays and photos, artifacts that showcase and tell the story of Keizer. If you don't mind, may I default to Robert just in case I left anything out?
Actually, thank you, Robin, and thank you to the committee. I don't think you left anything. I think you hit everything we're doing. I just, again, want to reiterate the revamped website, KeizerHeritageFoundation.org, which is being continually updated because we are still serving the community. And as Robin said, is the gateway to all of our organizations within the Keizer Cultural Center, promoting the latest show, virtual show, art association events, and library pickup. Anything, it's all right there at KeizerHeritageFoundation.org. And the KeizerHeritageMuseum.org is also in progress, but I hope to have something up within the next month or so that will really tell the story of or history of Keizer in more of a visual and kind of a compelling storyline with pictures and videos and anything else I can throw up on that thing. I'm working to get it up there for everybody. So thank you.
Thank you, Robert. And for the foundation, it has been a very challenging year for everyone. And I am happy to say that we took the opportunity to almost renovate the old schoolhouse. We have partnered with Classic Homes for referrals and to review quotes, making sure that we have communicated well with our vendors and that what we're asking for is what we need, because we're not professionals by any means in renovating an old building. And we just want to make sure that we're spending money responsibly because we are accountable for the building. So in regards to our sinking fund, which is now called capital investments, we replaced a 20-year-old roof. We replaced a 20-year-old lift. We replaced a 20-year-old water heater. We repainted a 12-year-old the exterior of the building. We cleaned and repaired our gutters. We upgraded our Wi-Fi bandwidth to accommodate online applications by the nonprofits. And we're kind of proud of this. We've expanded our Wi-Fi coverage to include the adjacent parking lots because we know times are tough for everybody. Kids need a place to be able to sit and get their homework done, and parents need to be able to communicate. So that was a good addition, and I thank Vicki Frimner from the library for thinking about the rest of the community in that regard. With all of these repairs, don't get nervous. We have completely depleted our sinking fund. Actually, that's not true. We left $1.42 in there.
$1.79.
Oh, $1.79. Thank you. And with that, we are busy raising funds to replenish for the next round of improvements, because before December 31st, we would really like to get new windows. It's very drafty in that building. And we get the new windows, we can really control our expenses on heat for the building itself, which is huge. And then we're also looking to paint the interior of the building because it's also been 20 years since that's been done. And we still have original carpeting. And so we decided perhaps to take the opportunity, since the library is remodeling and we could possibly get some grants. We are looking at recarpeting. In fact, our board has voted on recarpeting the library and the museum and the theater first. That money has been approved for them to go ahead and recarpet. Our city funds for 2020 and 2021 went to hard costs as requested and to payment for our administrator. And it also went for the PPE for the building, which we furnished. If a tenant needed some, we just furnished it for them. And to make sure that our building can continue to get clean. I know that some people tell me, well, we really didn't need the janitorial service all through this time, but two things. One, we kept somebody employed who counted on that money in their budget. And two, we still had people and volunteers coming and going from our building. And so they did a really good job at keeping us sanitized and clean. I want you all to know that we're very grateful and appreciative of your support. Without your help, we would have really struggled this last year. The safety and maintenance of the building is always our first priority. That way it ensures that there will always be a place for the public to view and experience Keizer history. And now, Lori, did I leave anything out?
Thanks, Robin. Just one thing, I want to assure you that we no longer have $1.79 in our sinking fund. We're working on a capital fundraiser project called Keizer 100. And what we've sought to do is to get 100 of Keizer's leaders and folks that have lived here a long time, folks who attended school there. I have a long list of people to contact. Lyndon Zeitz continues to remind me how slow I am at making contact with people. And I have to remind him back, I know these people. And so when I'm calling these folks, there's not a quick 10-minute phone call. These are people I care about. And each phone call can take 90 minutes to to a couple hours because I'm catching up with them, because in case you hadn't noticed, there's a pandemic. At any rate, we're at 49. So we have 49 of our 100. And I want to give kudos to the entire city council. The entire city council is a Keizer 100 member. Every single member stepped forward and has contributed. And it's not a small contribution. It is $1,000. And they have some time to pay for it. We're doing the fundraiser like we did the big toy, where you commit to being a Keizer 100 member and you have a year to pay it. And because we don't need the money right now. So it will build the future. We're thinking that when 20 years ago, we started with $100,000 in that sinking fund. Here we are 20 years later, we've done exactly what we were supposed to do with that money, exactly, in maintaining that 1916 building. And so we feel confident that if we're able to raise $100,000, that will see us through the next 2 decades. And then they'll have to continue it past that. I want to mention the timing is like perfect, even though it's not directly related to the Keizer Cultural Center. We have a new piece of sculpture on River Road as of today. The eagle has landed, and it is on the corner of River and Shamala. It's a terrific sculpture. And that, if you remember, is Keizer Public Arts Commission partnering with Keizer Community Foundation and the city of Keizer to cover the liability for that. It's a terrific sculpture, and I think people will really like seeing it. The other thing I wanted to mention is Vicki Bremer's husband, Vicki Bremer is the manager of the library. He has completely refurbished all of the benches at the Keizer Cultural Center. He did that all on his own. So the Crossler bench looks terrific. And when I went by there the other day, some crappy bird had crapped on it. It just tipped me off. So I got that all washed off. And the benches that are around the flagpole look fabulous. I have to tell you, the city of Keizer, Kathy Clark deserves credit for bringing us together as a cultural center, and it works so well. The Art Association, when we're open and running, can contribute approximately $10,000 a year. The theater can do the same. But the two that don't have fund generating potential is the library, which is very important to our community, and the museum, which is very important to our community. So the city of Keizer invests $20,000 in the cultural center to keep the building maintained and to keep the operations of that building going for those 4 nonprofits. I think it was a fantastic policy decision, which is why I've given a lot of my time to make sure that it continues to thrive and serve the Keizer community. So again, kudos to all of you on the budget committee. Thank you for spending your time on this important stuff. As a Keizer citizen, I really, really appreciate it. And I thank primarily the Keizer City Council for their contributions to the Keizer 100 and their policy decisions that help us to continue to thrive. Thanks so much.
Does anybody have questions for us?
So I'm just going to, if I may, I'm the liaison to the Heritage Foundation Board on behalf of the city. It is truly this is a working board. You just heard the overview of what's been going on even during a pandemic. And it's really been a pleasure to work with these very dedicated volunteers to provide the cultural center with meaning, with depth, with opportunity for people across our community to enjoy the arts. Thank you to the Heritage Foundation Board and all of the nonprofits for doing that incredible work.
Thanks. You're welcome.
Are there any other questions? If not, I'll go ahead and mute these folks, and I will allow Mark Callier to talk on behalf of the Chamber of Commerce.
Good evening. Thank you for being here. Thank you for serving. I appreciate everything that volunteers do in Keizer. We couldn't do any of this stuff without us, and it's a great community to be part of. Mark Keizer, I'm the interim executive director for the Keizer Chamber of Commerce. We've asked this year for the same amount of funding as we asked it last year. I've submitted to you a couple pages and some backup documents on contacts. I just wanted to hit the highlights. As all of you know, this has been a challenging year, but like the 2 previous organizations you just listened to, we are activity-based, action-based, and solution-based organization. And that means that we get out and we do what we need to do regardless of the challenge. And it has been a challenging year for business in Keizer. There's no doubt about that. We're still struggling with the service industry. I made mention last night at the council meeting that particularly the food service industry is struggling. We are just now hitting probably the hardest part of their endurance, in that many of the service industry businesses have went through their PPP money, their payroll protection plan money 1 and 2. They have went through the equity they had in their business. They went through their savings. They are struggling. The restaurants will get a bit of a bailout coming if we can, but we're hearing numbers like from Yelp, 60% of all restaurants that close will not reopen. I heard 2 days ago from the National Chamber, they estimated that 10% of the restaurants that closed this year will not reopen. That had nothing to do with what's been going on in the previous year. So at any rate, it's a tough time, but as a chamber, we are financially stable. Our membership is stable thanks to an aggressive, I should say an assertive membership recruiting effort. Particularly, we're gifted with Corey Ferlardo, who's been great in working with businesses. What we discovered over this last year is that membership is important to us, but we do not refuse services to businesses or folks based upon membership. I will say there is one exception. It's happened a couple times over this last 3 weeks. We keep being asked by Amazon to broadcast and list their openings, their job position openings, and we have explained to them that we'd love to do that if they would come up with the $300 to be a member. And I'm hoping Amazon will be able to do that. I think they're doing okay. Without that, most of the time we get calls daily, and we do not sort out by whether they're members or not, particularly businesses. We are providing PPP information. We're providing restaurant information. We're providing all kinds of COVID protection equipment through the county, which we distribute through the chamber. And that's all part of being action-based and activity-based. We've had a very strong presence up the canyon, as many of you know, during this last, since last summer. And we continue to be involved in that. We are part of the long-term recovery group of Santiam Canyon. We have a few members, but for mostly we're doing it because it's the right thing to do. In addition to those things, we've mentioned this in our application that we've reduced down to under 2 FTEs. Basically, we're running about 1.5 FTEs. We have 3 budgeted, part of our stability effort, and to be a good use of our funds, we've cut back just because, quite frankly, we haven't had the events. If you recall, we basically have major community events at least once a month, and we have not had that. If you look at some of our metrics that we provided in the back, some of our call volumes and our hit volumes on our web and YouTube and other places, you will find that you see these big blips, right? And I've had people go, "What are those?" Well, let me explain to you. First of all, the normal graph you would see there would be 500 to 1,000 constantly for 12 months. What you see is we're down in the 50 to 100 with blips at, for example, in September. What was in September? Oh, that's Percy. What's in November? Well, November, we were getting ready to have a parade, then we couldn't have a parade, and then all the traffic fell off. And then in January, First Citizen comes up. Oh, we're not having First Citizen in January. It's going to end up being in March. And then March, we have a blip when we have the event. And if you go back through the 3 different time periods I provided, you will see that in fact has been the scenario throughout the year. We go from incredibly active to incredibly inactive, and it drives us crazy. We plan on, for example, we are having activities this week. We've had greeters this morning. We will have the Keizer Network of Women tomorrow. We'll meet, getting active again. Thursday is the mayor's prayer breakfast, and we'll be announcing the 2022 Iris that's been picked for that Keizer Fest. So we're still, and that was through a contest with the Keizer Art Association. So we're still doing things. St. Edward's has their May 15th kind of May Fest. It's kind of a small Oktoberfest kind of thing at their church. We're helping supporting that and getting the word out. And we continue to produce our annual magazine, and we continue to do all those kinds of things that we've normally done. We do plan on having Keizer Fest in August. We're still talking about getting a carnival. We hope that will take place. We have over 20 events in the Keizer Fest alone that involve the community. So we will continue to do that. That brings tourism, brings people to Keizer. Tourism has been flat, as you may have expected. We are starting to see an uptick. As the weather has gotten better, we're starting to get more inquiries. As we've made the announcement about Keizer Fest, we're getting more inquiries. We just recently signed a contract with an organization that the council was familiar with, that maybe perhaps the budget folks are not familiar with, and that is the Enhanced Visitor Experience. It has a product called Quest and Discovery Network. And basically what it does, it uses transponders, mobile transponders that we can attach at a business, to a parade float, whatever. And people with smartphones will be able to, if they get within 25 feet of that transponder, that provides an opportunity for them to get a coupon, provides an opportunity for some advertisement, provides an opportunity to get one more notch in their belt for their 12 to 13 station quest, similar to what you might experience at Disneyland or McMenamins or many of these other places, except we have the ability to create this ourselves on the fly. And we also have the ability to make these mobile and use them as often as we want. And so we're very excited about the technology that that's going to provide. Our hope is that we'll be able to provide activities that will draw people to Keizer, that they will be able to use not only the quest, but we'll have, for example, once they complete the quest, they'll come to the chamber. We'll be able to provide them all kinds of information about Keizer. And by doing that, they'll enter in to win a prize when the quest is done. And then we'll have a drawing and people will get prizes. So we're really excited about what that's going to offer. It gives us an opportunity to work with the marketing folks at McNary, their development of signs and such. Those folks at McNary, we've got several CET classes and McNary students involved in thinking about how we can use their skills. Our biggest problem is we can't use them enough. We can't use them too much. If we have, for example, we need to design a magnet. That is one of the things that we do for this. They can't design 4 magnets in a semester. It'll be 1 magnet this semester, then they get a new group of students in, another magnet that semester, but we'll work it out. We'll keep them busy and we'll get them involved as often as we can. We're also developing a program with McNary about celebrating those folks who not only graduate from McNary, but what about, we have students that get signing days for sports. We have students that get all kinds of recognition for choir. But what about the kid that becomes a certified welder? Or what about the kid that gets these business related? So we're talking to McNary about doing some business related celebrations for those folks that are earning certificates of completion and trades and those kinds of things. So promoting business and the trades. We're also just today talking with the Wilsonville Chamber, and the Wilsonville Chamber is helped develop a program called Business Recovery Centers. Looking at the Business Recovery Centers, the kind of activity that they provide is they provide PPP supplies, they provide grant funding, and they provide consulting services. All these things that we're already doing. Come to find out, Senator Thacker has got a bill before the legislature to help fund some of these activities and expand those activities. And we're going to partner, hopefully, after our 8 o'clock meeting tomorrow with Wilsonville, we're going to hopefully partner with them to develop a regional business resource center that our businesses, their businesses, and businesses between us can help grow and bring in new businesses into Keizer. So we've got a lot of things going on. Tourism is a part. Our whole front office is all about tourism and bringing people into Keizer. We do get an occasional walk-in. We get calls daily for a couple reasons. When I will tell you, when I first started this journey, we were getting all kinds of calls for the city of Keizer, and I couldn't figure out why. And then I figured I went online and I found out, the Keizer Chamber is the #2 list on Keizer City webpage for information. So we get calls all the time. I thought, well, we're the answering service for the city of Keizer. Well, that might be true, but I will tell you, it is an incredible opportunity for us also to see new business people inquiring, wanting to talk to the city about new business. It's about people coming to Keizer, wanting to see what Keizer has to offer. And we are okay with where we're at, and we're okay with being listed where we're at. And quite frankly, it does not only Keizer City a service, but it does Keizer Chamber service and the Keizer community a service, because we get an opportunity to talk all about Keizer and all the things that they are missing by not being here. So with that, I'll be glad to answer any questions you might have. Jonathan is our immediate past president, and he's been a rock for me in this last 6 months. And if Jonathan, if you have anything else to add, please.
Thanks, Mark. I'll come off the diet, so to speak, and put on my Keizer chamber hat. And I think you did a great job. I was just going to read a comment that we received at the chamber to close things out. It says, "The Keizer Chamber has helped us so much during this hard time. Without the help and support from them, we probably would have had to close our doors. Anytime we needed help, we could always call on our Keizer Chamber staff and friends to help us. They helped us write grants, process all the rules. They created marketing ads for us and even organized tables so we could have customers come in and eat each time the rule changed. Without the help of the Keizer community, we wouldn't be here." And that's from Los Dos Hermanos. So I just wanted to third party validation for the efforts of the team at the chamber. So thank you all very much. I appreciate it.
Kohler, I see your hand raised. Go ahead.
Mr. Wood, thank you. As the liaison to the chamber, I just want to say I've been thoroughly impressed with all the work that they've done and the activities that they've supported and helped us with in the community. It's just been amazing to watch what they do. And Mr. Collier, I just want to tip my cap to you and the rest of the board. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Is there any other additional questions? If not, we can move on to budget presentation and deliberation. Since we have a fair number of new folks to the committee this year, I thought it'd be a good idea to do a quick budget overview. Oregon has some very strict laws regarding the municipal budget process. Those laws are to promote transparency through notice requirements and public involvement. That's why we have a mix of city councilors as well as residents of Keizer on this committee. Budget is presented in total, however, each fund is a standalone entity. We can't take money from one of our funds to cover a loss in another fund. So in essence, the city has 20 different businesses that we're trying to manage at any given time. The emphasis is really on the ability to provide services into the future, really a long-term budget forecast look. You compare that to a corporation, typically there's a lot of emphasis on profitability, really a short-term emphasis, not a long-term. Compare that to your personal budget. There's an emphasis on meeting your current needs, paying your water and your utility lights, but there's also a mix of long-term and short-term needs as you start looking at trying to fund retirements. So the city is a little bit different than a corporation and a little bit different than your own home personal budget. Oregon budget law does have very strict penalties if we go over budget in any specific area. If we do go over, I'm forced to write a written plan to the city council on remediation efforts and how we're going to prevent that from happening in the future. So there is some rather strict requirements, and there can be some financial penalties to me personally as well. So as a reminder, when we start looking at the budgets, we do try to round to the nearest $100. That can result in some really large, significant percentage increases, but it's on really small dollar items. In general, we do try to budget each line item to what we believe is a reasonable expectation. Some years will be a little over, some years will be a little under. For the budget committee's perspective, what you're ultimately approving is the budget in total, not necessarily the specific line items within that budget. So within our budgets, you're going to see 4 different categories that you're really going to have to opine on at the end of the day. There's the department, so that could be your police, parks, finance, utility billing. Those would be typical departments, and you would be basically agreeing with the total dollar amount of that budget, not necessarily the breakout between the personal services cost, materials and services, or capital outlay. On top of that, the the state makes us break out specifically transfers. So that'll be another specific line item that you'll have to agree on. Also, debt service and contingency. When the city council gets together in June and adopts the formal budget, you'll see in the resolution that those categories are really the only things that you'll see and the only things that you're really going to be approving. This is not to say that you can't look at the individual detail. We try to be as transparent as we can and give you as much detail as possible, but don't necessarily get super wound up if one line is a couple $100 different than what you would expect it to be. With our budget, we have two budgets that have multiple departments within them. We have the administrative services budget that we're going to talk about tonight. That is kind of the overhead categories. It has a city manager, city recorder, human resources, finance, a few of those things that are not specific operating type of budgets. We also have the general fund, which is kind of the I guess the junk drawer of funds. Anything that doesn't have a specific restriction can go in that fund. I know I shouldn't say this, but police is in that fund, so we'll just leave that one alone. Also within there is the planning. We do have some administrative type of expenses that really shouldn't be applied to a lot of the other types of funds. With respect to the folks that presented tonight, they are talking about some of the outside budget requests, and I sent a list of those today. For your information, all of those have been included within the budget that it will be presenting to you tonight. If we do decide we want to make changes to those, add money to it, my recommendation would be you would just say where you want to add the money, and we can pull it out of ending fund balance or contingency. We don't necessarily need to cut one area to add to something else necessarily, unless you're going really big dollars on something, and then I'll have a heart attack. With that, I do appreciate a lot of you have sent me some listing of typos. This document is fairly long. We've had a lot go on in the last 2 months with the city. Yeah, there's going to be typos. I acknowledge that and I appreciate it. Again, you're not opining necessarily on all of the information within the budget, but just on the totals of those budgets. So with that, I'll talk a little bit about what we're going to end up doing. Tonight, I hope that we can get through the Administrative Services Fund. And again, that's the general overhead fund. And then through most of the public works funds. With the Administrative Services Fund, we'll have each of the department heads, whoever's in charge of that budget, do a quick talk through for you, answer any questions that you may have. And then at the end of the Administrative Services Fund, that would be the appropriate time to make a motion to approve that budget as is or as amended. When we get to the public works funds, each of those are standalone funds. So after we present the fund itself, that would be the appropriate time to make a motion. So each of those are specifically restricted, and those funds can't cross general ledger accounts at all. So with that, if you wouldn't mind turning to page 67. I'll go ahead and see if I can share my screen here. I want to talk a little bit about some of the trends that you'll see throughout all of the budgets. This is the labor payroll benefits. This is really the significant item that goes throughout the budget. It's a huge dollar number, and it's really where a lot of the year-to-year activity does happen. As I indicated, we're looking at 101 employees as compared to 103. So when we look at salary and wages, you'll see when you compare from budget to budget, we're actually flat, but that's largely due to the costs of the the community development director and the administrative specialist position not being included in those lines. We do have a wellness program. I'm just going to cherry pick some of the highlights. For the wellness program, we do budget as though everyone is 100% participating. That does result in some cost savings. We have expanded that program over the last year, so we're getting a little bit better participation than we have in the past, which I think is a good thing because wellness. Healthy employees do make better, more productive employees. Retirement, we did talk about that already. We're going to almost 2.7 million. That's a big number. We're going to see some big increases as we look at all the individual budgets, between 17 and 30%. You're going to see that kind of a wide range. It really depends on what level tier of PERS. We have tier 1, tier 2, and then the OPSERP, and then it also depends on whether you're police and fire, that type of thing. So there are some variables within there. We also do budget as though everyone participates in the deferred compensation plan. The city does provide a 6% match if you participate. We do have employees that do not participate to the full extent. So you'll see a little bit of a upswing there as far as retirement goes. This year with insurance benefits, we're looking overall at about a 5% increase throughout the budget, as I indicated previously. That is really remarkable in my opinion. I think it has to do with a little bit of the nesting impact that we've had over the last year and a half. People just aren't going to the doctor as much as they have in the past with the COVID restrictions in place. I'd probably say that rate is probably good for this year. As we look into the future, we're probably going to be creeping up a little bit as we go. Unfortunately, with our workers' comp, we are still in the midst of a transition from one provider to another. We do not have a solid lockdown on the rates for that at this point, but we're kind of assuming that there's not going to be a significant change from what we have budgeted. If there is a significant change, we'll have to come back and present an additional budget adjustment if we need it. We may have the ability just to absorb it and see what we can do once we figure out where people land with their insurance benefit selections. So that's the big ticket items that you'll see throughout all of the budgets. So at this point, I would say let's turn to page 94. Again, this is the Administrative Services Fund. This is the catch-all fund that has the city manager, city attorney, city recorder, human resources, 3 different finance department areas, which includes IT and utility billing, the Civic Center facilities, which manages the building, and then we also have Public Works Administration. Overall, we're seeing a relatively modest increase of 3.2% for personal services overall. That's a little bit understated because, again, the administrative specialist role has been eliminated. So that reduction you're seeing in the finance non-departmental and finance utility billing is the direct result of that. So had that been in there, we probably would be seeing a little bit higher increase. Materials and services, overall, we are trying to toe the line. Some of the things that are going to pop out tonight, we are looking at recruiting for a new city manager. There's going to be some costs associated with that. So we have some headhunters and legal, those kind of things that you'll see with that. In addition, human resources, we do have some ongoing legal stuff going there that we're providing dollars for that we'll need for probably this year and for next year. We do have ongoing labor negotiations that we'll have to provide for as some of those things. With respect to capital outlay, we are seeing a relatively big increase. From an IT standpoint, we're taking a step back and taking a breather this year. My IT folks are exhausted. This last year has been exhausting for them on many reasons. The push to do remote distance kind of stuff has tapped them. We've had a lot of software upgrades. We've been moving towards touchless kind of environments, online bill pay kind of things. And so they're taking a little bit of a breather. But having said that, with $8 million potentially coming our way, we're probably going to get busy again. Also with the Civic Center Facilities Fund, you can see a large increase. We have to do some repairs to the pergolas on the sides of the buildings, and I'll let Bill Layer talk about that a little bit later. The contingencies that you're seeing here, the $340,000, that is primarily the building reserve. We have a 11-year-old building, and our reserve is about $340,000. This is to save up for things like HVAC systems, roofs, major type of things that we need to provide for into the future. So with that, at any time, go ahead and ask questions. Unfortunately, I can only see about 5 of the tiles with my screen shared. So I may go back if I can't catch your question, please go ahead and yell it out, or if the chair would catch them, then that would be great as well. Moving on to the city manager budget. Unfortunately, this is kind of a choose your own adventure for the city council right now. I've put dollars in as if we were moving forward with the similar situation that we've had in the past, plus some recruiting fees. Once we get farther along the path of going through the interim city manager process and doing the full-on recruitment for a city manager, some of these dollars may end up getting shifted around depending on what kind of a package that people are looking to offer to a new city manager. In this budget, you'll see the line 21. This is where you're seeing the investigative report that's made the papers, also the legal costs, but also the recruiting fees for the new city manager that we're expecting to come down the pike. And with that, if there's any questions related to the city manager budget, I would be willing to address those at this point.
I do have a question about it's a generalized question, I guess more of a concern on my part, is when you're considering the fact that there's been so many job losses and such a huge economic impact on the citizens and businesses of Keizer, having the city that have guaranteed, or for the most part have had guaranteed jobs, asking for a rate increase, as well as asking for COLA and benefit increases. I guess I'm kind of trying to figure out, first of all, how these fees play into the budget, the proposed increased fees pay into the budget, and also, how I don't know. I just wanted to express my concern in that respect.
Sure. No, I think that's a good question to ask. Typically, we do use a CPI indicator that we follow and use that for the basis of creating cost of living adjustments. The challenge that we have is we try to be within about 5% of the middle of all of the comparable cities that we rate up against. We want to be competitive with what's going on in the market, but we don't want to be overly aggressive and be the premium city, I guess it would be one way to say it. The challenge we have is balancing annual increases versus every 4 years or every 2 to 3 years, depending on the labor agreement. We do go out and we do a study to say, okay, this is where we're at now. This is where at all of the comparable cities. If we have major adjustments, major differences at that point, we do try to adjust back into that 5% mid-range. If we were to go and do nothing and all the other cities were to do something huge, we potentially could have a huge catch-up adjustment that we would need to consider. So it's kind of a catch-22. I do understand the concern, and by our city policies that we have laid out, that's been our historical practice. If we wanted to go a different route, I do think it would probably require a policy change that we would need to figure out how to work through. I do see we have Kathy Clark has her hand raised. If you want to.
Thank you very much. So I want to address, that's a very valid concern that was raised. And Tim, could you touch on what we do for community members who are having difficulties paying their bills? You and your department are not only very proactive in addressing the needs of community members individually, but also using the funds that we've been provided through the CARES Act to keep people current. And I think that might talk a little bit to what the concern was that was raised, if I said that question correctly.
Okay. Well, again, during the previous budget cycle last year, when we got together, we did end up forgoing all of the rate increases that we possibly could. We were originally looking at a 4% water rate increase back then. I can't remember, but we were looking at a police fee increase. We were also looking at a stormwater increase. And then, unfortunately, a sewer rate did pass and got put on us this year. So we did take a conscious effort to step back last year and hold the line as far as the rate increases on the citizens that we could. In addition to that, when we received the CARES Act money, we allocated $300,000 that we provided to St. Vincent de Paul Salvation Army, who worked with only the residents of Keizer to help them catch up on all of their utilities if they were past due. So we didn't just give them money and say, okay, pay people's water bills so we can get our money back. They paid a significant amount for people's electric bills, garbage bills, rent, mortgages, those kind of things. I anticipate that when we get the $8 million coming up, if it's $8 million for next year, a portion of that will again go back out to the community as far as assistance goes. I haven't presented that to anyone, but I do feel strongly that we need to consider that option. As far as businesses go, we did work to secure some grants to provide some funding for some of the businesses in this area. Unfortunately, with one of our rounds, we just couldn't give the money away, unfortunately. We just didn't have enough qualified applicants to take it. So those are some of the things that we've done over the past. On a regular basis, we do continue to refer people to Salvation Army St. Vincent de Paul if they are having troubles. They do have funds available to help with assistance. So probably not a perfect answer to your question. That is some of the things that we are doing. We also kind of stabbed myself in the foot, I guess. My group has actively been working on not collecting any past due fees. They've been very adamant that I have 3 wonderful women who work with me. They're on the phone constantly calling people, trying to find out if people need help, if they need resources, if they just need information, trying to catch them before their water city services bill goes past due. And our past due fees have taken a beating. We're collecting maybe 1/10 of what we used to as far as past due fees. So we're actively working with as many people as possible to try to provide as much help as we can. Again, probably not the perfect answer, but that's kind of some of the things that we're trying to do, because we do understand we have been working and we've been providing the services throughout this whole COVID-19 situation.
Thank you.
Any other questions I can address at this point?
This is Hirsch. Back on insurances, does the wellness program have a positive impact on the rate for your insurance, medical insurance for employees? Or is that just an add-on that isn't tied with the insurance, medical insurance?
It does impact it. We do get some recognition for it. Do
the rates go down though? Because I know there are programs out there where a wellness program, if you get so many involved, that your rates actually go down.
I'll have to turn that over to Michelle DePina. I don't see how the underlying calculation necessarily, so I don't think that there's a line item specifically for wellness, but I think it does get factored in.
And then on workers' comp, you mentioned you were trying to do another carrier. Do you go through special districts, or is it Safe Corporation or one of the other 250 in the state of Oregon?
We've historically been with CIS. They've been changing their program this year, and it looks like they've been trying to outsource us to Safe. So we're not sure exactly where it's going to land yet.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Did you want Michelle to address that one?
If she knows if the wellness program, because you can, if you're spending $1 and you're saving $1 on the health insurance, it's maybe something to think about, maybe not this budget cycle, but the next budget cycle.
I'm sorry, this is Michelle. I did try to unmute and it didn't work before. It would be really nice if I could hand you a chart and say, here's what we pay with it and here's what we pay without it. Unfortunately, it doesn't work that way with our insurance vendors. What I can tell you is that before we put the health and wellness program into being, I met with all of our carriers and our benefit advisors and said, here's what we're planning. And we want some assurance that there's going to be a positive impact if we go down this road, because we're going to spend money and a lot of staff time supporting this program. And I got assurance, verbal assurance from everybody that would be the case. We've been tracking our insurance costs from that point forward, and I can say there is a noticeable reduction in our yearly quotes that we've been able to negotiate. They will not tie it directly to that, but every year when I go back out, I give them a summary of here are the activities we did in the past year in our health and wellness program. And we have had such support that for one of our vendors, they actually give us a $5,000 grant every year specifically to spend on special programs. And that's above and beyond rate reductions that we've received. So I think that it is positive. I think that we would be paying a heck of a lot more if we didn't have the program in place. And I think our employees are actually healthier too because of their participation, and that helps lower the rates because they're doing more preventative things rather than waiting until things are at a more expensive state to get care.
Thank you so much. That's a good thing. The transit district has gotten awards for their health and wellness program, and it's nice to hear Keizer is benefiting in the long run.
We have had some of the vendors actually ask us to use our information so that they can share it with other people. So I do believe that we have a pretty good reputation with them, and every year our benefit advisors are very excited to talk about our program because it helps them help us negotiate lower rates. But
Good.
Thank you for the question.
Anecdotally, I would say it does incite a little bit of competition within my department. We do have people that get a little competitive with their step counts.
Well,
and we also do hear them talking about the other challenges and those kind of things. This program does keep health and wellness in the forefront of people's minds. And I think that's important.
Yeah, your staff person chased me down to get me the budget book. So
that would be gone.
Health and wellness, and I was in a truck and she caught me.
Yes, I think she is a power speed walker. So, any other questions in general or related to the city manager office? If not, we'll go ahead and move on to the city attorney's office. And for this, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Shannon Johnson.
Thanks, Tim, and members of the Budget Committee. Thanks for being here tonight, and thanks for your service. As you can see on page 98 of the budget document, pretty much similar to years past, except for the PERS hit line 15, as Tim had talked about previously. And you can see I skipped over, but in each section there's a budget narrative at the top. Our office, of course, represents the city through direction by city council and assists staff and the planning commission, all the other commissions and other personnel with any legal questions they have, drafting ordinances and contracts, etc. There really isn't any other change that I can think of, and so I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Looks pretty clear.
Seeing no questions, I guess we can go ahead and move on to the City Recorder's Department. And for that, I'll turn it over to Tracy Davis.
Thanks, Tim. Thank you, Budget Committee members. My department consists of myself and the Deputy City Recorder. We support the City Council and the boards and commissions and volunteers and the administration department. Budget's relatively the same except for the little increase in retirement. And I also oversee the community center, but you'll find that budget separate with those employees and costs. So we'll talk about that one later, but not much to say. So if there's any questions, I'd be glad to answer
them. Seeing none, we'll go ahead and move on to the Human Resources Department.
Okay, you'll find the HR budget on page 102. Like you just heard with Tracy, we are a shop of two people, myself and the Human Resources Generalist. We provide human resources services to all the employees in the city of Keizer. We also work with the council on related issues, work with the Personnel Policy Committee, and we, of course, communicate with the public on recruitment and benefits and things like that as the need arises. Taking a look at our budget, we also have the same hit with retirement. Other two areas of increase are the labor attorney line item, which is resultant from a number of investigations that are in progress, that some of which we anticipate are going to transition over or follow over into the next fiscal year, as well as some additional work on updating our policy manual, which is due for an overhaul. It's partially completed, but with the change in our leadership, we will have to run through the changes one more time with our new city manager and our leadership team. We also have a bit of an increase in the contractual services line, and that is for completing the salary surveys that Tim spoke of. They're due for all city employees this year, and that is a project that we also contract out with another entity to provide a third-party review of the work that I do on the salary survey so that we can make sure that there is an external party that reviews those results and makes recommendations based on the data that's collected. Other than that, that's pretty much what we've got going on in our department. And any questions, let me know.
Yes, I got one. Back on workers' comp and stuff, being a small office, do you contract your workers' comp and risk management duties out?
The way that workers' comp works, as Tim was mentioning earlier, is we were using CIS as our workers' comp carrier. We do all of the work in-house. We don't contract out those services. And right now, as he had mentioned, CIS has decided they're no longer going to be a workers' comp carrier. They'll still staff some of the work, but they're partnering with SAFE and recommending that all of their prior customers transition to SAFE. We aren't automatically doing that. We've asked our advisor to look at other options just to make sure before we bite that bullet and say we're going to do SAFE. And we're also waiting for SAFE to provide to us their rates because we've been very successful with CIS in keeping our workers' comp rates very low using a retro program. Initially, when we were told about SAFE becoming the option, they weren't willing to provide a retro program, and that was going to be a cost increase for us. Since then, it's my understanding that they've changed their position and they're planning to provide that opportunity. The other thing is they handle volunteers completely differently than CIS does, and so we are sharing a lot of information about that topic to make sure that we still have the flexibility and without too much additional cost to cover all of our volunteers. So those are works in progress. With respect to risk management, it's all done in-house. Tracy and I share those duties. I handle all the employee risk management, and she handles all of the city, the external risk management situations.
I'm the old state risk manager, so
there you go.
I just those are little costs that can add up real quickly.
Yeah,
and I'm glad to see so far it's in the reasonable range. And your negotiations with SAFE, be aggressive is all I can say.
They actually came to us a couple years ago and were challenging us to shift to SAFE while we were at CIS. And so we said, fine, put together your proposal. We gave them all the data, and we were able to prove at that time that it would be very much more expensive to use them. And that was because of our retro program and the savings that we had made over the years with that. They weren't able to be competitive. So I'm glad to hear they're changing their tune. And both Tim and I are optimistic that this will be a transition that'll end up being one that doesn't cost us more. So
thank goodness. We'll keep our fingers
we're gonna
crossed.
work hard on it.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I've got one. The last couple budget cycles, we've talked about a human resources software program to evidently get you guys off of stone tablets and onto something a little more user-friendly. Is there any update on where that project is or any hope for the future?
Tim, why don't you take that one and I'll chime in as needed.
Yes, we've made forward motion. This is one of the projects that we use some of the CARES Act grant funds for. Our issue right now is bandwidth. We're supposed to be implementing the software during May, at least that part of the module. We're still trying to get through another piece of the module that we had implemented a while back. So unfortunately, yes, we're working on it. We just have bandwidth as far as being able to get the project done. We've unfortunately had a lot of unexpected things happen the last couple months that have really taken a lot of our time. So I think once, at least from my perspective, once we move through the budgeting process, at least my group will be able to refocus again. And maybe, I don't know when the HR is going to.
There will not be a time when we have the time, but we will make the time because we don't really have a choice. If we don't carve out the time to do this, we're never going to be able to catch up. So at this point, we're going to find a way to put our data in and get the program moving as soon as it's ready to go,
Yes.
regardless of what's on our plate.
I think my group will be very instrumental in helping with the data process, and
we're going to need all the help we can get.
my group does, now that the budget process is for the most part done, does have the bandwidth, and May is the month to do this, so we got to roll forward with it. So
Great, thank you, appreciate it.
any other questions related to the HR budget? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and move on to the finance non-departmental budget. This budget really needs to be taken in consideration with the utility billing budget. We did implement an online bill pay system, an upgraded online bill pay system that was integrated. As the result of that, we've really seen a significant impact in the workload associated with the utility billing. It's dropped down enough that we were able to consider a restructuring. So part of the utility billing costs are now hitting this budget as administrative support. They're doing some of the things that the previous administrative specialist position had been doing. So they've really stepped up and absorbed some of that workload. During the shutdown of the community center, the administrative specialist position was the primary support of those operations. With that position not doing those responsibilities, unfortunately, we did have the reduction in force that At this point, we're not going to backfill as a result of restructuring. Those duties have been dispersed, and once we get the community center back online, some of the administrative specialist role related to the community center will go with that position. So what you're seeing here is some interesting numbers. You're seeing in the personal services area a decrease. That's acknowledging the loss of the administrative specialist position, but it's partially offset by some of the formerly utility billing costs. So it's not necessarily a complete position that we lost out of all of this. On top of that, we do have the ongoing audit fees, contractual services. We're still looking at doing auditing. Unfortunately, I wish we could get out of that one. With the CARES Act money and then the ARP money, we are going to have to be doing a single audit, unfortunately. There is a dollar threshold which triggers a federally mandated type of audit, which no one likes to do, and it's not fun. But we're going to have to do it because with that money, we did hit that. And that's why you're seeing the slight uptick in the audit fees. So with that, if there's any additional questions on this budget. Seeing none, I guess I'll go ahead and move on to the next one. This is the information systems audit. This is also under the finance department. And as I indicated before, these folks retired. They've been working hard, setting everything possible up. I had my folks jump up and down trying to get the sound system in the chamber fixed. They're fixing TVs in the lobby. They're trying to get printers working. They're trying to get people who work remotely up and running. They've been pretty much running crazy. I anticipate that we're going to spend every penny that they have within their budget this year. As we look into the future, you're going to see some fairly big impacts in the computer software and maintenance. It looks like a fairly big uptick. Some of that is we are going to need to update our voicemail software next year. It's getting to the point where it's end of life. That's going to be about $18,000 of that increase. We're also seeing a lot of additional network security, desktop security type of costs. You're seeing the annualized impact of those. So a lot of those we implemented partway through the year. You're going to see the full year of those costs next year. Let's see. As far as computer hardware, we are going to be taking a little bit of a slowdown next year. We're going to get back to upgrading a lot of the desktop computers that we have. We still have a lot of desktops that are running Windows 7, specifically in our Public Works department. And if you're aware, Windows 7 is no longer supported by Microsoft, and it is somewhat of a security risk just in general, and also with regards to CGIS requirements if they were subject to those with those computers. So that's going to be one of the main things that we're looking at replacing. We're also looking at replacing 2 data servers. We have 2 servers, one for police department and one for the rest of the city. We're looking at replacing both of those. So that's what you're seeing in the computer hardware line for next year. With that, if there's any questions.
Tim, where in here, which line would include software fees?
Software fees would be the computer software and maintenance line 21.
Okay.
Yeah, that's really been growing.
I know it is.
We've added a lot. And with each piece, we do look at it and say, is this something that we want to bring in-house, or is this something that we should outsource? With our Springbrook software, our main financial accounting software, we used to house that here, but we just realized that the benefits of having Springbrook themselves host it and us access it through a web client was enough to make it worthwhile. I appreciate that I can log in just about any computer and access our financial stuff. So in the event of a disaster of some kind, our data is still sitting nice and pretty somewhere backed up.
Good, thank you.
We look at those kind of things. We're also considering that type of stuff with our email, whether we should continue hosting it on site or do that off site. Again, with each software package, we're really trying to make that decision whether it makes sense for us to host it or someone else. So.
Tim, I'm also curious as to the increased security from our malware attack. And you say that you now can access our financial information from any computer. Is that making us more or less susceptible to hacking?
That is really spreading our eggs in multiple baskets. So if the city were to get hit again, our financial software would be sitting nice and pretty somewhere else and not susceptible to any malicious activity. So this is a deliberate strategy to divide the risk out. So I don't know. So me being able to access it from home does not increase the risk at all to the city.
Okay, thank you.
Any additional questions? Okay, we'll move on to the utility billing. Do I hear a question?
Yeah, this is Mayor Clark. You said something about bandwidth for being able to take on some of the software upgrades and so forth, especially Springbrook and HRIS and so forth. Is that bandwidth as in human hours of the day, or is it having to do with the computer network capability?
100% hours in the day.
Okay.
That is our only restriction at this point.
That was kind of fixed. If somebody figures out a way to do that, let me know.
Yes.
Or maybe don't.
Okay, moving on to the utility billing area. Again, this area, we've taken part of the personnel costs and allocated them now to the finance department. So you are seeing a slight reduction. You're seeing a lot of wonky numbers there, but that's really the impact that you're seeing as we shuffle the personnel around a little bit to meet the needs of the city. With that, you are seeing an increase in contractual services. That's primarily credit card fees. With the continued push on online bill pay, people are using their credit cards. A lot of folks are using it to get their miles. Unfortunately, miles have the highest credit card fees associated with them. So, but I don't blame them. I get it. We all want to cruise when this pandemic's over. So with that, we did increase the overtime line item with basically losing the administrative specialist position. They are periodically pushed to do a little bit of overtime, especially when it comes time to shut off the process. However, having said that, now that we're really pushing to not have any shut-off fees, they've done an excellent job in minimizing that impact as well. So most of the overtime that you're seeing now is dealing with customers who do come to the counter periodically and are there at the end of the day. And we want to make sure that we have enough resources to stick around and help them. The meetings, travel, and training, we haven't seen a lot of activity with that. I do want to address that my folks need to get trained up. Springbrook, our software company, has provided some training out into the future. That does come with a cost, and I feel it's pretty imperative that we do send all of the utility billing staff to that training. It is specific to the Springbrook software, but I think it will give benefits to them that we can continue to be a force multiplier and do more with less with that group. They've really come together this last year, worked hard. We've worked through the pandemic. They've continued to show up every day doing their thing. And I think they're even happy. So with that, if there's any questions. Okay.
Mr. Wood.
Yeah.
Just a quick question. I don't really know what the answer would be this, but under contract services, there are some companies that if you go try to pay your bill online, they offer you a check option where you just put your routing number and account number in, or a debit card, but they don't offer other credit cards. Would that save us a bunch of money, or do you think there would just be a bunch of people that wouldn't pay their bill?
You know, I've thought about that. I personally pay through my bank's bill pay system, and to be honest, that's the cheapest way to pay. So I guess I'm a cheap accountant. I guess I kind of feel like it would be an equity issue if we limit the options of how someone can pay. I would be concerned that, you know, maybe someone doesn't have a bank account, but they have a credit card. You know, I think there's some issues that I want to make it as easy as possible for folks to pay. That's also one of the reasons why we don't charge service charges if someone does use a credit card. We could, every time someone uses their credit card, charge them $3 to $5 as a transaction fee. I think that would do a disservice to some of the folks that, you know, maybe that's their last $100 that they're putting to the water bill, and I don't want to take 103 from them. The cost does get borne by the entire city, so it's still there. It's not going away. But I want to give people as much opportunity from an equity standpoint to be able to pay their bills. So yeah, I agree with you. I'd like everyone to do an ACH from their online bill pay system. I just don't know if we're there yet. I do like to make fun of the people that get their miles though, because it is expensive.
So you think that the $100 water bill over a 12-month period is not going to really get them very far?
Yeah, probably not. Any other questions? If not, we'll go ahead and move on to the Public Works non-departmental, and I'll turn this one over to Bill Lawyer.
Thank you, Tim. This budget covers staff costs, myself and others that are paid out of multiple funds. And that's what the personal services section of this budget shows. The materials and services and capital outlay are all of the costs associated with operating and maintaining the public workshop, which is located behind the fire district on Schmall Road. You'll see in this proposed budget, there's an improvement of $16,000, $16,100. That's for parking lot resurfacing, crack sealing, and striping. And I will let you know that most of that work is done already. The fire district was interested in, we have an agreement with the fire district to share costs for maintaining that parking lot in that area. They were interested in getting the work done last summer. We didn't have the budget available for it, so they agreed to front the cost, and we pay them back in July, assuming the budget is approved. So that's what those funds are there for next year. And I'd be happy to answer any questions on this budget.
Seeing none, I guess we'll go ahead and move on to the next budget, which is the Civic Center Facilities Fund. And again, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Mr. Lawyer.
Thank you, Tim. This budget captures all the costs associated with maintaining the Civic Center facility, the 69,000 square foot building and the surrounding grounds around it. Really, as Tim mentioned earlier, the biggest note on this budget for next year is the proposal to replace the pergolas outside City Hall and the police department and the break room, staff break areas. Those are items that have needed to be addressed probably 3 years ago, but we were just kind of waiting until it was absolutely necessary. They're not in imminent danger of collapsing or falling down or anything, but it's time to address them. The issue of what we have, honestly, is some rotten wood posts and some wood structure in there. Very surprised it's rotted this fast, since considering the age of the building. But what we're planning to do is replace that with either steel or composite material so that it won't rot in the future. It's really the highlight of that fund for next year.
Bill?
Yes.
On the repair work you're talking about, this building is about 11 years old?
They're about 12 now, but yeah, 11, 12 years old.
Is there insurance coverage on this back on the design?
Not, no. Short answer is no. I
Okay.
contacted the designers about 4 years ago. In fact, I think it was almost exactly 4 years ago. Expressed concerns what we were seeing. And basically what we got from them was, well, we can help you come up with something to replace it. And we'll give you a good rate for that work. But that was as much as we got.
Okay. I lived through the transit courthouse thing, so I'm always looking to see how we could save some money, but you already did that.
I tried, yes.
Any additional questions? If not, we'll go ahead and move on to the final.
This is Kathy. So this is the fund where when we're looking at creating essentially a sinking fund or a capital outlay for the future fund, this is where that would be housed when we start to build that up.
That is correct. That's line 38.
Okay. So that's the first. Well, there was a budgeted last year, but we didn't for 2021, but we didn't spend any of it.
That is correct.
Okay, was that because we got the CARES Act funds where we were able to do some of the work that we needed?
Partially correct, yes. Some of the all the improvements that we've done to the Civic Center were paid with the CARES grant last year. This is really, we're just building this up really for that catastrophic HVAC roof failure type of thing. So we have really no intention of spending this contingency if we don't have to. We would like to continue to build it just so that we have that reserve sitting there to be good stewards of the building here.
Thank you.
Moving on to the final department within the administrative services budget. This is kind of the overlying supplies, insurance, city council expenses, things that legitimately can be applied over all or allocated out to all of the different funds, but we host them here so that we can keep an eye on what's going on with them. Overall, materials and office supplies, postage, we're trying to keep the toe of the line with that one and not see really a service increase. We are coming in a little bit under budget for the year, and I think that really is the COVID-19 impact that we're not buying as much as we have in the past. Our trend was really headed up for a while, but I think we've kind of leveled off a little bit here. Association memberships, those are typical type of increases of about 3% overall, depending on which group we're talking about. City council expenses are a little low this year just because we're not seeing a lot of the traveling. Everything is virtual. We do anticipate that will go back up to a more normal level next year. The big piece here is liability insurance. We're looking at probably about an 8% increase in the liability insurance premium. Associated with that is line 25, the liability retro plan. We reserve some funds. This is based off of known issues that we have going on, plus a reserve for the current year for the issues that we don't know about. So with that, if there's any questions. Seeing none, this would be a good time to turn it over to Ali for a motion on the Administrative Services Fund.
All right, if no more questions, then I'll make a motion to approve the Administrative Services Fund.
I'll second it. This is Kathy.
All right. Let me hear the yeas.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
All right. Any noes? Okay, then it sounds like this.
It is 8 o'clock. Do we want to take a 5-minute break? And then we can continue on with the Public Works Department funds.
Good plan.
But Allie, do you want us to take a 5-minute break?
Yes, let's go ahead and take a 5-minute break.
Okay. Let's be back.
Okay, so see everybody at 8:07.
with that, the first up on the list is the street fund. And I'll go ahead and turn this over to Bill Lawyer.
Thank you, Tim. Really not a lot of changes in the street fund this year. Reduced revenue due to COVID. Gas taxes were down, therefore revenue was down for the.
You may be on mute, Bill.
I
can hear you, Bill.
Okay.
You're fine.
Okay, thank you. As I was saying, had some reduced revenue. That really affected our ability for primarily street resurfacing. Had to hold off putting that package together to know how much money we were going to have available for that. We actually just had some bids open for ADA ramp upgrades associated with this resurfacing project. The bids, one, were higher than anticipated, quite a bit higher than anticipated, and very few bids received due to, I think, primarily because we got out late. Again, because we had to wait to see what kind of funding we had. So what I've decided to do is just postpone that and put it back out for bid in October. Hope for better bid time of year, better prices, and more interest from contractors. So you will see some allocations in this fund for resurfacing. That money will just sit there and be carried over into the next year. We'll try and get some of the work done early in the spring. The ADM ramp work, we'll probably have that done winter time, early spring. It's work that can be done that time of year. Get it all ready for paving season next summer. Really, the only other significant items of discussion in my mind are in the street improvement line item number 64. That is payment to the transit district for our share, our second payment for our share of the cost of the installation of the signal at the transit center in Keizer Station Boulevard. And in the line 67, signal and signage updates, those funds are for a fiber optic project for River Road traffic signals. That'll take all of the traffic signals on River Road from city limits to Wheatland Road and replace a hardwire copper system with fiber optics to enhance operations of the traffic signals. That project's being designed and managed by the city of Salem for the city of Keizer, with funding for that project in addition to our contribution provided through the SCATS, Salem Keizer Area Transit System, or Transit Study, excuse me. Grant funding we received for that project through a joint application with the city of Salem. And with that, I'd be happy to answer your questions.
Bill, I know the traffic safety bikeways has been really hot on new sidewalks. I don't see a lot here where we could afford much this next year.
That's true.
Okay.
That has not been plugged into the budget primarily because there hasn't been a priority list established or areas of the city to focus on, so we can put together some reasonable cost estimates to figure out how much money we need to budget for sidewalks. That is something we're talking about implementing with some of the latest the transportation bill that was just passed. So those are some ideas we have waiting, as Tim said earlier, on guidance on how those funds can be used and where they can be used. And once we have that, then we can put together a solid plan on what we're going to do.
But general fund wise, if the committee really wants to do anything, we're talking about 2023, 2024 kind of monies, possibly.
Possibly, Hirsch. With the resurfacing program, as I mentioned earlier, there may be some ability to shift some of those funds for resurfacing to sidewalks. But again, we're going to have kind of a map, a roadmap, if you will, priority areas to figure out what we're targeting to do.
Sounds good. I also see on here you have donations for the bike safety. That's the helmets, right?
Yes.
Okay. You're kind of low, but that's okay. We can do a lot with $500.
Yeah, and you know, I typically budget it that way, Hirsch, and if it comes in, we get more donations than we expect, we can adjust accordingly and spend that money on helmets.
Well, this year with the Monster Cookie being in Keizer, I got the board to approve that $1 per rider can go to bike safety in the community.
Right.
So the more we get, the better.
Right.
Okay. Thanks, Bill.
Bill, I have a question about our brand new lovely reflectors. Where did those come out of the budget? And just tell us a little bit about that.
Well, that's a very good question, and that reminds me of another thing I should have mentioned. Those came out of line 45, contractual services, okay? And you'll see that is a little higher than maybe normal, but that's where they came from. And then the other thing is street maintenance. That's well over budget this year. That's directly related to ice storm cleanup. Those costs are all directly related to cleanup from the ice storm. And on that, I just heard today that the disaster declaration, that was easy for me to say, wasn't it? Was accepted at the federal level. And so we will be eligible and should be getting some reimbursements for costs associated with the ice storm. I don't know any more details than that at this point, but it was approved. And so as we move forward through the next weeks and months, we'll be getting some more information and applying for reimbursement. And I'll keep everybody updated on what we're eligible and what we receive.
Bill, I have a question about the ADA ramp compliance.
Yes.
So are those, first of all, what exactly does that mean? I mean, what exactly does that project entail?
Okay. When we go to resurface a street, okay, repave a street, we are required to update every ADA ramp on the streets that we're resurfacing to meet current standards, okay? So you'll see that it's not shown specifically, but it's included in the street resurfacing line item. In addition to that, you typically put aside $25,000 for areas of Keizer that we are systematically going through the city and updating ADA ramps in neighborhoods. And so last year we weren't able to allocate any funds for that because we were committed in other areas. I put it back in here for next year, and I can't tell you right now the area that we're looking at, but I know Mike Griffin, my division manager, has some areas in mind, and he's systematically working through the city to update ramps. If we get a request from a citizen for an area because they have a need, then we will address those as we can.
So I saw a map. I talked to Mike about this a couple weeks ago. I saw a map. I live up here in North Keizer on St. Charles and Erica and everything else. And I saw a map that said that every one of the ramps here need to be upgraded. I can tell you, Bill, you can take us off the list. I mean, I'm a frequent user with my son of those ramps, and I can tell you they work just fine. So I was just curious because I can tell you because I push a kid in a wheelchair. They work just fine. I don't know why they need to be updated, but
well, I appreciate your comments, and I wish I could operate that way. Unfortunately, there's this overarching federal ADA guideline and a document called ProWAG, and the guidelines are pretty unforgiving. And if your current ramps do not meet the current standards, never mind if they function okay, never mind all that, they have to be updated.
That's what Mike was saying.
Yeah. There's a window, and there's a the term is escaping me. Safe harbor provision. That's what it is. That leads one to think you could leave some in place, but it's very vague and very hard to defend for me to say this one can stay because it falls under the safe harbor guidelines. And so my approach has been, if there's any question that we can defend that, then we'll just mark it as non-compliant. We'll work on getting them replaced. Areas like your part of town, they're going to be last on the list. or near the last on the list, because we know they function well. They've got the necessary reasonable slopes. They've got either the truncated domes or etchings in them. They function, they work. They don't need to be replaced just because they don't meet the current standards. Ultimately,
Gotcha.
eventually, they will have to be replaced.
Gotcha. Great. Thank you.
You bet.
Any additional questions on the street fund? I'll turn it over to you, Allie.
I've got one. I'm sorry, Tim. Is this the page where we're going to see the Verda project accounted for, or is that going to be kind of like a plus minus?
This is where you will see the Verda project, Madam Mayor. Although the commitment or the city's portion for the design work has already been paid, we won't have to do another payment for. It won't be this next fiscal year, but the following year you'll see that come back in.
Okay. Does that go to construction then next in the summer of 22?
No, that construction is 24.
Oh, gotcha.
See, we've got design and we've got acquisition. Acquisition is going to take longer than initially anticipated, and construction is out in 24.
Can you elaborate a little on what that project is, please, Bill?
Yes, I will. That is an full urban improvement or upgrade to Verda Lane from Dearborn to the Parkway, and includes realigning Claxter Road from its current configuration to line up with Alder Drive in a true T intersection. Means we have to buy a piece of property, realign the road, and because we're buying a full piece of property, and this has got federal money with it, there's guidelines for acquisition of that property that are going to delay the acquisition process, which is going to delay construction. Unfortunately. And that'll be curbs, sidewalk, separated sidewalks, bike lanes, all that. And there's discussion about potentially and adding a left turn lane probably for southbound Verda Lane, or no, excuse me, northbound Verda Lane, turning west onto Alder Drive. There's also some discussion about rapid flashing beacon, mid-walk block, crosswalk type of fare. Instinctively, I don't think there's a safe place to put one on that corridor, but I haven't discounted it. We're looking at it. Some of the areas that have been identified from I'll say a need standpoint, apartments and multifamily housing units. From that standpoint, it makes sense. However, there's grade curve issues that make, in my opinion, something in that location very unsafe because the drivers just can't see it in time. But we're still looking at it. It hasn't been fully vetted yet, and so I'm not going to say it won't happen. Just don't know at this point.
Bill, isn't that some safe routes to schools monies possibly could be involved in that one?
Possibly. Have not applied for that yet, Hirsch. I wouldn't do that until I was very comfortable that there was a place that rapid flashing beacon worked and worked safely.
Yeah. But even for some of the sidewalk improvements and stuff, because we got 2 wonderful schools right there. Technically 3, because you want to include Kennedy.
Yeah, I haven't really considered going after safe routes money for construction, Hirsch, to be honest with you. Based on what I've seen in the past on safe routes and those programs, I don't think it would score very well. And since there's already funding in place, identified, and basically committed, I'm not opposed to going after it, but I'm just not excited about it. I would say.
The only thing is, Verda has the speeds that safe routes is always looking for. You have to have a certain level of speed.
Right.
You know, like or Kennedy and Cummings that we applied for, 20 miles an hour, and there's no problem from that.
One of the biggest problems with Verda is volume. I mean, we think it's a busy street, but compared to some of the other applications that are out there for safe routes funding, even Verda does not have a high volume.
So, just keep it in mind.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
You bet.
Any additional questions? I'll turn it over to you, Ali.
Laura, did you have an additional question? Your hand is raised.
Sorry, I meant to put that down.
All right.
Thank you. Sorry.
If no questions, then motion to approve the streets fund.
Seconded.
Okay. All yeas?
Aye.
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 All right. Any noes? Okay, then sounds like it was approved. Moving on to the street lighting districts. Tim?
Moving on to the street lighting districts. This fund accounts for all of the lighting districts that we have throughout the city. Currently, we have over 200 different districts. The city does all of the initial infrastructure build-in and then turns around and charges that back to the property owners in each of those districts based off of the actual cost of the installation and then the ongoing electricity costs. These are for the streetlights in a lot of the neighborhoods. We do have a handful of neighborhoods that do not have streetlights, and we would really like all of those folks to come together and contact us, and let's see if we can put a district together to get light in your area. This year, we are budgeting for 2 additional districts. It's yet to be determined if it'll actually come to fruition, but we want the dollars there to support that. With respect to the ongoing electricity costs, you're not going to be seeing a big change. Probably the assessments that you saw on your property taxes last year will be almost the same amount that you'll be seeing this year. So there's not a whole heck of a lot of changes. One of the things that we did do is take the pole replacement restricted fund balances, and we've moved those into contingency. As some of those poles get a little bit older and we're on the hook to replace them, we want to have the funds in a bucket that we can actually access. Under budgeting law, we're not really allowed to access restricted fund balance. It has to be appropriated in the following year. So by moving those funds to contingency this year, they are available if we need them. And we'll continue to account for them in that bucket just for future access. We're not able to access that without City Council approval through a supplemental budget process, though. With that, if there's any additional questions. Seeing none, I guess I'll turn it back over to you, Ali.
Okay, if no questions, then motion to approve the street lighting district.
I move to. Sorry. I move to approve the street lighting district fund.
Second.
Go ahead.
All right, let's hear the yeas.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Okay, any nay? Okay, then it's approved as written. And moving on to the Transportation Improvements Fund. Tim?
Go ahead and turn this over to Mr. Lawyer.
Thank you again, Tim. Transportation Improvement Fund, those revenues are generated by development in the city. New development, new businesses, offices, restaurants pay into this fund on basically on a trip basis. As you can see, we took in a whole lot more money in the current fiscal year than we anticipated. That's primarily driven by the Chick-fil-A project and the development out at Keizer Station Area D. So it's in the fund now. Next year, we're not really anticipating a lot of additional development. We assume 20 single-family homes. If other development like the Chick-fil-A comes along, then you'll see an increase in revenue at the end of the year. No projects really planned for this except for a southbound I-5 on-ramp addition for a southbound additional lane. As noted in the budget document, this is an ODOT driven project. We have a commitment to partially fund that. So we're just waiting for ODOT to come to us and say it's time to build it. Time for you to pay your share, Keizer. And when they do, we'll be ready to pay our share. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Just so people know, I do keep pestering ODOT once in a while about this, going, and? No answer.
Yeah. I think I've had the same comment on this fund for 7, 8 years in a row now. But until they come to us, we'll just wait and be ready to go when they're ready to go.
I'll turn it over to you.
If no further questions, then motion to approve the Transportation Improvements Fund.
I move that we approve the Transportation Improvement Fund.
Second.
Okay, let's hear the yeas.
Aye.
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 All right, any noes? Okay, then it's approved as written. Moving on to the Stormwater Fund. Tim?
On the way to Stormwater Fund, we're going to pass the Offsite Transportation Improvement Fund. Because there's no current year budget, we don't need to discuss it, but because there is previous year activity, we do need to include it in our document. So this is just for historical purposes, no action required. Moving on to the Stormwater Fund, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Bill Lawyer.
Thanks, Tim. As Tim mentioned earlier, Stormwater Fund, there's no planned rate increase for this fund this year. Fund seems very stable to maintain and improve the system as necessary. Really not a lot of changes in this budget either, except for one capital outlay item. That's to replace our pipeline cleaning hydro excavating truck. I've got my guys all refer to it as the VACON. It's the big blue machine you'll see around town. It's 2008 model, and maintenance on that thing is starting to really kill us. So decided it's time to replace that. And so you'll see that allocated on line 61, and the balance of that, it's about a $500,000 piece of equipment. The balance of that fund you'll see in the water fund when we get there. It's a shared cost between the two funds, because those are the two funds that use that piece of equipment. We're again budgeting for storm system repair and pipe extensions. Probably won't see any extensions, but we'll see some more repairs as we discover those through our video inspection program, and determine. We're still looking at some other areas of the city that in some places it shows lines under houses, at other places it's not. Some other areas we're discussing is we've got one fairly good sized line in the backyards of some houses up off of Lock Haven. We'd really like to get that out from the back of the houses so we can work on it. But that has design issues because there's a lot of other utilities out in the street. We don't know if we can even get the new storm drain at the depth it needs to be. But we're still looking at it. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, I see street sweeping is in here. That's one of my favorite. For everybody else, the Monster Cookie bike ride, I have gotten comments over the last 12 years. People can actually say they could tell the difference between Salem and Keizer streets because Keizer's were cleaner. And I think it's because of our street sweeping.
One thing I should mention for the committee, so that you fully understand the funding for the Stormwater Fund, there's also a transfer from the street fund in here of $500,000. I think at $521,000. What that is the streets fund's share of stormwater fees. When this utility was established, the decision was made that the street system needs to pay its share of stormwater fees, just like a residential home does. And so what we did is we calculated the impervious area of the street system in Keizer and assigned an equivalent service unit to that, okay, which equals 3,000 square feet of impervious area. and then applied the fee to that. So in addition to the fees the residents pay and businesses pay on their city services bill, the street fund also contributes to this fund. And street sweeping used to be in the street fund, but we made the decision it was more appropriate to be in the stormwater fund because it's a direct pollution prevention practice that is required within our permits to operate the stormwater system.
Any additional questions? I'll go ahead and turn it over to you, Ali.
All right, if no further questions, then motion to approve the stormwater fund.
I move that we approve the stormwater fund.
Second.
Okay, let's hear the yeas.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, any noes? Okay, then is approved as written. Moving on to the sewer fund. Tim?
The sewer system is actually owned by I guess it's a cooperative of the area. The city of Salem does all the administration. They dictate to us the rates every 2 years, and then we add those to the city services bill, take those revenues and remit a portion of those back to the city of Salem. So this is really a pass-through fund for us. We are looking at a 3% increase in rates that will be effective January 1st, 2022. That's consistent with the 3% increase that we had this year. We will be coming back to the city council with a budget adjustment at the next city council meeting. When this year's budget was put together, we were not aware of what the actual rate increase was going to be. So now that we've gotten through the January 1st, 2021 rate increase and sewer reset period, we're going to go back and recognize the additional revenue and also the additional payments to the city of Salem that we're going to be required to pay. With that, if there's any questions. Seeing none, I'll turn it back over to you, Ali.
All right, motion to approve the sewer funds.
I move that we approve the sewer fund.
Second.
Okay, let's have the yeas.
Aye.
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 All right, any noes? Okay, then approved as written. Moving to the sewer reserve funds.
I'll turn this one over to Bill Lawyer.
The sewer reserve fund. Revenues from this fund come from the development of property that needs sewer outside of the original sewer district. But those funds those revenues go into this fund to build what's called a trunk sewer line. Currently, we have basically one trunk line yet to build in the city. That was identified in the sewer master plan. That's on Windsor Island Road from basically the driving range back to Lock Haven. There's really not a need to build it right now because there's no development happening out in that area. As development occurs, we will work with the developers and either partner on a project, build it, they'll reimburse us. They build it, we reimburse them. Kind of depends on what the size of the development is and the need for sewer is at that time. We don't anticipate a whole lot more money coming into this fund because the ground is just about gone outside the sewer district. So we've just estimated there might be 2 acres next year that develop and pay into this fund. We've done a good job historically using these funds to build trunk sewers. Clear Lake Road was one that was built. The other one was a big 36-inch through McNary Estates out to the treatment plant. And we're just kind of waiting until there's a need on Windsor Island Road to get that line built. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
I don't see any questions, so Ally?
Okay. Motion to approve the sewer reserve funds.
I move to approve the sewer reserve fund.
Second.
Okay. Let's hear the yeas.
Yay.
Aye.
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 Okay. Any noes? Okay, then approving as written and moving on to the water fund.
I'll
Tim?
turn this one over to Bill Lawyer again.
Thank you, Tim. As Tim mentioned earlier, the water fund there's a 4% rate increase proposed that's incorporated into this budget. Not a lot of changes from last year going into next year. Primarily in the capital. Well, let me step back just a minute. On line 59, pump maintenance, you'll see that we were well under budget allocation for this year. That's primarily because we had pumps fail last year, and some of the pumps that failed last year that we rebuilt and rehabilitated were next on the list for this year. And so we didn't have to do those. So the expense is down, which is a good thing, kind of balanced out between the 2 fiscal years. And we'll plan, we've allocated money for next year for routine maintenance, and then, some failures, hopefully the failures don't occur. Also, line 71, as I mentioned a few minutes ago, is the water funds portion of that pipeline cleaning hydro excavating truck. Really the only other change in this budget between last year is the transfer to the water facility replacement reserve fund. That's up about $100,000. There was funds available without hurting the water fund. Those funds are primarily available because, as Tim mentioned earlier, we paid off our debt. So transferring those to the facility fund, which is the project fund, allows us to replace more mains and do another project, which I'll touch on when we get to that fund here in a few minutes. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Bill, on the truck, what are you going to do with the old truck?
Well, the dealer will let us trade it in.
Okay.
But we're also looking at maybe auctioning it. Trying to determine, doing some research to see what we might be able to get from an auction standpoint. And if we would think we'd get enough more money than a trade-in to make it worth its time. So still haven't fully decided what we're going to do. Worst case, if you will, we'll trade it in on a new one.
Okay.
Any additional questions on the water fund? Guess I'll turn it back to you, Ally.
Sorry, real quick question. A little slow on the unmute. So is this where we're going to see the projects that are queued up in our water master plan?
No, that's in the next one, the water facility replacement reserve.
Thank you.
Okay, any additional questions? All right, if no questions, then motion to approve the water funds.
I move that we approve the water fund.
Second.
Okay, let's hear the yeas.
Aye.
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 All right, any noes? Okay, then approved as written and moving on to water facility replacement fund.
Thank you, Ally. I'll pass this along to Bill Lawyer again.
Thanks again, Tim. Water facility replacement fund. The revenues from this fund come from a combination of systems development charges for new connections to the water system that are paid on a meter size basis, and then transfers from the water fund. The bulk of the revenues for the water facility replacement fund come directly from the water fund. But this is what we use to track projects. This is the project fund basically for the water system. Projects that are accomplished through this fund are outlined in the water master plan. And as Tim mentioned earlier, really about the only thing left in the master plan is water main replacements, replacing steel water mains. We've also identified a need to design and build a filter plant at our Meadows pump station. That well has great water capacity, but it has aesthetic issues, taste and odor problems. So we have elected to look at designing and putting in a filter system that will allow us to use that well on a regular basis instead of just on a summertime basis, to take advantage of that source of water. We know we can, it's not dangerous, it's not harmful, it just has taste and odor issues, iron, manganese, and some hydrogen sulfides. Excuse me. So the goal is by the end of this fiscal year, the end of June, have the design ready to go, ready to bid. We'll bid it next fiscal year and get it built next fiscal year so we can use that facility to its full capability. And then you'll see another $300,000 allocated for water main replacements as well. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Turn it over to you, Ali, with no questions.
Okay. Motion to approve the water facility replacement fund.
I move that we approve the water facility replacement fund.
Second.
Okay. All yeses?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, any noes? Okay, then approved water facility replacement as written. And moving on to Park Services Fund.
Yeah, I'll turn this over to Bill Lawyer.
Thanks again, Tim. Park Services Fund. Revenues for this fund come from a combination of general fund support and the parks fee. You can see on the revenue side, the parks fee generates about $680,000, and the general fund contributes another $361,000. In addition, there's some revenue from park rentals that we have. We have 2 houses that we rent from the park system, as well as we receive some revenue from a cell tower at Bear Park as well. Excuse me. You can see that our reservation fees and amphitheater rental fees are non-existent this current year. That's all obviously COVID related, and hopefully we can meet the revenue goals we set for next year. We just keep our fingers crossed. Highlights for this fund. This fund's exciting for me because we get to do things I never thought we'd be able to do in the park system. We've accomplished a lot. We plan to keep accomplishing things. You'll see in the contractual services line item, significantly over budget for this year. That's ice storm related costs. And as I mentioned earlier, it's been approved for reimbursements. So we should see the bulk of those funds coming back to the Parks Fund through the federal government. Going into next year, we've got a list of things we want to accomplish down here. Couple picnic shelters by the Big Toy, 88 upgrades at Bob Newton Family Park. We'd really like to level and irrigate and seed the lower field at Keizer Rapids. At this point, I'm not positive we're going to get that done because some of the initial cost estimates we've had come in are much higher than we'd anticipated, but we'll still work through to see if we can make that happen. Couple things I wanted to explain or mention on the park rental program expenses, line 55. You'll see that's quite a bit over budget, over projected budget, but that's directly related to working with the tenant of that property and doing basically a remodel, updating of that house. The tenant participated in that financially, managed the project, and what we came out with was a very nicely updated home that we can ultimately continue to rent. And if the current tenants decide to move somewhere else, we'll be able to get more revenue from it because it's been updated. Next year, we're also going to complete the master plan update. I'd hope to have that done this fiscal year, but there was some hiccups, some meeting cancellations, different things like that. So it's now planned to be done by the end of September. That'll give us the roadmap moving forward on improvements and maintenance and those kind of things throughout the park system. The last thing I wanted to mention is on line 70, you see $65,000 allocated to the Park Improvement Fund. That's to repay a loan that the Parks Services Fund took from the Park Improvement Fund to build the shade sails at the Big Toy. This is the final payment on that. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Very good.
I have a question on page 135. It talks about how on line 54, upon completion of the concert series and submittal of documentation, $2,000 will be paid to the operator as general sponsorship stipend. Is that operator the Keizer Rotary, or is that or somebody else?
That's Clint Holland, or
Okay.
KRA.org is the organization. That's for the summer concert series, and KRA is the one that was doing that series. Clearly they didn't have it last summer, so that payment will be made. But that's what that's for.
Okay, so that's okay. So what kinds of okay, so that's just a stipend in terms of managing that concert series?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Any additional questions? Okay, then motion to approve the Park Services Fund.
I move that we approve the Park Services Fund.
Second.
Second.
Okay, let's hear the yeas.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any noes? Okay, with that then approved as written, and moving on to the final item for tonight, Park Improvements Fund.
Again, I'll turn that over to Bill Lawyer one more time tonight.
And thank you one more time tonight, Tim. Park Improvement Fund, the revenues for that fund come solely from systems development fees paid by new housing in Keizer, both single family and multifamily housing. We have not had projects identified that are eligible for use of these funds over the last few years, primarily because we've been focused on replacement of items within the system that we're using the parks services fees for. Going into next year, both projects we've identified at Keizer Rapids Park, the picnic shelters at the Big Toy and the seeding and irrigating of that lower field are eligible for partial funding through the Parks Improvement Fund. And so that $25,000 is allocated for those projects. There is a council adopted methodology that regulates how much of the Park Improvement Fund monies can be used for projects. And at Keizer Rapids Park, it's about 13.6%. So it's not a large percentage wise, it's not a large number, but every time we come across a project that we can take advantage of these funds, we do. As part of the master plan update, we will be looking at the SDC funds and the methodology around the use of them, and revisit and update that depending on the improvements outlined within the master plan. So it's unknown how much this will change, if at all, but once we get the master plan finished, then we'll know, and we'll have that updated. And hopefully what we'll see out of that is a greater ability to take advantage of these funds. And from there, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, if no questions, then motion to approve the Park fund.
I move that we approve the Park Improvement Fund.
Second.
Second.
Okay. Let's hear the yeas.
Aye.
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 Any noes? Okay, then approved as written on the Park Improvements Fund. We did a great job on time today. 6 minutes to spare. I'll give it back to you, Tim.
Thank you. Again, thank you everyone for dedicating several hours to this project. I am available all day tomorrow and Thursday if you do have additional questions, thoughts, concerns related to what we talked about today or what we'll be talking about on Thursday. If there's any additional information that you can think about that may be helpful, I'm more than willing to try to put something together for you. And again, I do appreciate the time commitment, especially the crunch that happens with multiple meetings in 1 week. I do want to respect your time. So unless there's any additional questions, I think, Ali, you could go ahead and close out the meeting.
I would like to just point out one thing, if I may.
Okay.
I just wanted to point out on page 4, the Distinguished Budget Presentation Award. Usually the city manager makes a point of congratulating Tim on his excellent work on these budgets. And, you know, we are recognized beyond our own scope of influence. And so I just wanted to point that out and thank Tim for all his efforts in this and just really acknowledge that we have some really good quality work going into this budget. So thank you, Tim.
Thank you.
I agree. Thank you, Tim.
I can't do it alone. That's for sure. I appreciate all the department heads that assist me every year. It's really not my reward. It's the city's award. So I really do appreciate everyone that helps out. And that includes you folks as well. I do appreciate, you know, the lively discussion that we have at times at these meetings and at other times. I do appreciate the fact that, you know, we aren't necessarily rubber stamping things. People are looking at things and it's okay to question things. So, but thank you. Thank you very much for that acknowledgement.
Yeah, thank you, Tim. Any last thoughts before we close out?
Guess we'll just see you Thursday.
Okay, then close out until Thursday session.
Thank you, Ali. You did a great job.
Yes, Ali.
Thank you.
Stupid.